August the 4th, 2022 seemed like an ordinary day at Abbeyshrew Aerodrome in County Longford. Planes taking off, the hums of engines in the air, with nothing suggesting the hidden danger about to unfold. Yet, as a Cessna aircraft touched down on the still runway, it was carrying more than just a pilot and luggage. Unknown to those nearby, this was no leisurely landing. Inside the bags tucked in the belly of the plane was a staggering €8.4 million worth of drugs, a shipment from France destined for Ireland's Underworld. What began as a routine flight would soon unravel into one of the country's most audacious drug smuggling operations, leaving law enforcement scrambling to follow the trail. As the pilot was transferring the bags of drugs into the waiting car, officers swooped in and arrested him. But the bigger question is, who was behind such large-scale drug trafficking? In the darkened streets of Dublin, rumours of a shadowy group slowly and steadily rose to prominence, a criminal enterprise unlike any seen before. For years, the family ruled from the shadows, Ireland's most powerful drug empire, orchestrating an illicit operation that spanned continents. The seemingly untouchable empire had taken a hit, a fracture that would soon expose deeper vulnerabilities within the family's sprawling narcotic network. This wasn't just a drug bust, it was the start of a takedown that would bring the gang's reign under unprecedented scrutiny. The family was careful, calculated, and discreet, expanding their empire while avoiding the spotlight and bloodshed that often accompany such criminal reigns. Yet today, the dominoes have already begun to fall. Since the aircraft seizure, the police have been on to the family. As of September 2024, a coordinated international law enforcement operation has reportedly ensnared the family in a dramatic drug bust. Authorities have seized €7 million worth of narcotics. It's hard to believe that a group as formidable as the family could ever be vulnerable. But even the mightiest criminal enterprises have their tipping point, and for the family, that moment has arrived. The series of events leading to the family's downfall has sent shockwaves through the Irish criminal underworld, and it all started with one of the most sophisticated police operations in modern history. The encrypted world of criminal communication was supposed to be untouchable, invincible even. EncroChat, Sky ECC, and the infamous Ghost Network offered criminal organisations a seemingly bulletproof method of communication. These phones, sold under the guise of privacy and security, were designed to keep the police at bay. Yet the one thing that criminals never counted on was the tenacity and patience of the global police community. And when Europol, the FBI, Australian Federal Police, and the Irish Garda finally cracked Ghost, they not only exposed the vastness of the family's empire, but brought Ireland's largest drug cartel to its knees. Let's deep dive into how the family, once thought to be untouchable, began to unravel. I'll explore the timeline of the family's fall from power, the role of encrypted networks in their operation, and the international effort that led to their downfall. Let's meet the brothers who founded the empire. The Grenan Brothers, Brian and Philip, are the elusive masterminds behind the family, a criminal organisation emerging as a formidable force in Ireland's underworld. Operating with precision and avoiding the typical gangland flamboyance, these two brothers have built a reputation built on stealth and strategy. Brian Grendon, the more visible of the duo, is known for his meticulous approach, steering clear of publicised violence and focusing on expanding their influence through calculated narcotic dealings. Philip, meanwhile, has maintained a lower profile, yet his role in the family's rise is no less significant. Unlike other gangs driven by turf wars and flashy displays, the Grenan Brothers prefer to work in the shadows, focusing on profitability and maintaining a close-knit, impenetrable structure. By employing a network of young recruits and addicts to insulate themselves from the authorities, they have quietly expanded their narcotics empire, primarily dealing in heroin, but branching out to other illicit trades like coke, MDMA, and firearms. Their methodical, business-like approach to crime has allowed them to evade the dramatic downfall seen by their rivals, positioning them as a powerful and growing force in Dublin's criminal landscape. Brian Grendon, the more public figure, first made headlines in 2002 when he was arrested for his role in a €1.9 million drug deal, which led to a 6-year prison sentence. Despite this setback, Brian's influence in Dublin's drugs trade only grew after his release as he adapted his operations and remained a keen player in the city's narcotics scene. His criminal career continued with more brushes with the law, including a dramatic car chase involving a drug deal in Palmerstown that ended in his arrest. Philip Grendon, though more reserved, also had significant run-ins with the police, most notably in 2014, when he was caught with €3.8 million worth of drugs in a bizarre episode in a Spanish hotel. He's believed to have been released as of 2019. With Brian Grendon still in Garda custody, Philip Grendon is believed to be running the family and its operations. Before diving into the details of their downfall, let's take a moment to understand how the family rose to prominence, from a Dublin gang to a cross-border drug trafficker. The roots of this criminal organisation can be traced back to West Dublin, where these two brothers, whose details are closely guarded due to ongoing legal proceedings, laid the foundations for their empire. Beginning with heroin trafficking in the 1990s, the family quickly carved out a space for themselves in the criminal underworld. What set them apart from others wasn't just their ruthlessness, but their business acumen. Unlike the flashy and violent gangs that dominated the headlines, the family operated with a low profile. Over time, they slowly but surely gained influence within Ireland's criminal underworld. The family has been linked to several high-profile criminal entities, from close affiliations with the Turkish mafia groups in the UK to connections with various narcotic groups across Europe. They existed actively among the likes of them. After expanding their distribution, they built strong ties with international crime groups as well. The family has even occasionally dealt with the Kinahans. Maybe it was during these encounters the family learned the Kinahans' tricks and eventually bested them to become Ireland's leading narcotics distribution crime group. Celtic Tiger socialite Marcus Sweeney was also among the circle of the family. Brian Grendon laundered significant sums of money through him. Interestingly, Sweeney's former girlfriend, Katie French, a model, was a coke addict. She tragically died because of an overdose. For years, their operations flew under the radar. They avoided the deadly feuds and public shootouts that often attract the authorities' attention. Instead, they focused on quietly building their empire, branching out into the coke trade in the 2000s as demand for this drug skyrocketed across Europe. By the time the Kinahan cartel, the reigning force in Ireland's drugs trade, was embroiled in a bloody feud with the Hutch gang, the family was slowly and steadily expanding their operations. Signalling at the family's leading involvement in the narcotics trade, Detective Chief Superintendent Seamus Boland said, "I can assure you that the Kinahan organised crime gang is no longer the primary organised crime gang in this jurisdiction or impacting in this jurisdiction. It's worth asking, how did the family manage to avoid the traps that so many other criminal organisations fell into? Why didn't their empire collapse under the weight of security forces' pressure or internal disputes? The answer lies in their meticulous strategy. The family didn't just deal drugs, they mastered the art of smuggling, distribution and laundering their illicit profits through legitimate businesses. They diversified, investing in various ventures and, most crucially, they built their international connections, including ties with Turkish mafia groups and other European criminal organisations. But even the most careful plans have cracks, and for the family, those cracks would begin to appear in the form of a seemingly unbreakable encrypted phone network. This closed network aided in strengthening the underworld crime. Encrypted communication tools have long been a favoured method for criminal organisations. EncroChat, once considered the go-to tool for European crime groups, was a messaging system that provided criminals with a false sense of security. However, when the French National Gendarmerie infiltrated EncroChat in 2020, it sent shockwaves throughout the underworld. Thousands of encrypted messages were intercepted, leading to the arrest of thousands of criminals across Europe, including high-value targets within Ireland. The total arrests were more than 6,500, around 200 of which were high-value targets. The Kinahan cartel was amongst the most affected, with multiple arrests stemming from the EncroChat hack. The criminal world scrambled. With EncroChat compromised, the demand for another, more secure encrypted network grew. That's when Ghost entered the picture. Ghost, a new encrypted communication platform, promised criminals the privacy and security that EncroChat failed to provide. The phones were specifically designed for illegal activity, allowing users to communicate without fear of being traced. Messages could be set to self-destruct, and the phones could be wiped clean remotely. The family, like many other criminal organisations, seized the opportunity. They adopted Ghost as their primary method of communication, confident that they could continue their operations without interference from security forces. For a time, it seemed to work. The family expanded their coke operations, smuggling massive quantities through Ireland through sophisticated networks that included the use of legitimate transport companies. They struck deals with international crime groups, secured new supply lines, and continued to launder their profits through seemingly legitimate businesses. But while the family was expanding its empire, security agencies were quietly working in the background. After the success of the EncroChat operation, Europol, the FBI, and other international agencies turned their attention to Ghost. What they uncovered was far beyond what they expected. Ghost just wasn't a tool for small-time criminals. It had become a global hub for organised crime, with some of the world's most dangerous criminals using it to coordinate drug shipments, money laundering, and even eliminations. And the family? They were right in the centre of it all. Operation Kraken was the pivotal strike that shook the family to its core. Launched in 2024, it was an international operation involving Europol, the FBI, Australian Federal Police, and the Gardaí. The operation targeted criminal communication networks, specifically Ghost, which had been used by the family and other criminal syndicates to traffic drugs, launder money, and arrange violent crime. This was no ordinary takedown. It was a massive, coordinated effort involving security agencies from 9 countries: Ireland, Australia, Canada, France, Iceland, Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, and the United States. The police had gained access to more than 150 encrypted devices, including 42 ghost phones that had been used by the gang's top figures. The data from the device included details of drug deals, logistics, violence, and even discussions about how to avoid police surveillance. Assistant Commissioner of Europol, Justin Kelly, said the highest number of devices using the Ghost tool were in Ireland. Interestingly, Mr. Kelly revealed that the Irish investigation also uncovered a significant cryptocurrency element. Organised crime groups commonly use this method to move illicit proceeds discreetly. It is possible that the family may have a significant amount of money invested in bitcoins or other cryptocurrencies. The family, relying on Ghost for secure communications, found their network exposed. The police hacked the system, allowing them to monitor the gang's activities. In Ireland, over 100 Garda officers conducted coordinated raids on over 100 countries, leading to the arrest of key family members. They seized 100 kilograms of coke worth €7 million, along with €300,000 in cash from a truck parked in a farm in Wexford. This raid, conducted primarily in Wexford and Dublin, was the first of many that would ultimately dismantle the family's carefully orchestrated smuggling network. The arrested individuals were Patrick Kinsella, Dean Chambers, Carl Dowling, and Wojciech Kuzio, and a 5th unknown person from Dublin. The drugs had been shipped into Ireland from mainland Europe, using a well-established trafficking route through Rosslau Europort. For years, this route had allowed the family to move millions of euros worth of drugs into the country undetected. One of the arrested individuals was the group's major supplier. Haulier Dean Chambers, owner of Dean Chambers Transport Limited, based at the Lodge, White Park, is an Irish businessman who'd been using his legitimate logistics company to smuggle drugs into Ireland. On the surface, he was a respected entrepreneur, but in reality, he was a key player in one of Ireland's largest drug smuggling operations. But despite these early successes, the family is not about to go down without a fight. Even as their top members were being arrested, the gang scrambled to protect what remained of their empire. They began deleting their Ghost accounts, destroying devices, and moving quickly to secure their remaining assets. However, the damage has already been done. In total, Operation Kraken dismantled a major drug route, seized over €15 million worth of narcotics, and arrested 11 individuals linked to the family. The operation not only dealt a severe financial blow to the gang, but also shattered their belief in the invincibility of encrypted communications. For the first time, the family's leadership, including the 2 brothers at its helm, is in real danger of facing justice. This could mark the beginning of the end for Ireland's most powerful drug empire. Representatives from Europol, the Australian Federal Police, and the FBI were in Ireland for the operation. As a result of the operation and previous Garda activity related to Ghost, coke valued at €15 million, €230,000 of cannabis, and €100,000 of heroin has been seized by the Gardaí, along with €350,000 in cash. 27 laptops, 42 suspected ghost ECC encrypted devices and 126 other mobile devices were among other items confiscated. Still, a lot of inside information is hidden. A Garda spokesman said they do not comment on ongoing operational activity. The Grenan Brothers are entitled to a certain level of protection under defamation laws in Ireland. That's why they're enjoying anonymity for the moment, but not for long. One of the most significant hits to the family's operation came in the form of financial losses. As the joint forces continued to seize large quantities of drugs and cash, the gang's ability to generate revenue was severely hindered. In addition to the €7 million worth of coke seized during the Wexford raids, Gardaí also confiscated significant amounts of cash, firearms and other assets. In total, it was estimated that more than €15 million worth of drugs had been seized in the weeks following Operation Kraken. With their primary drug routes compromised, the family's income streams were rapidly drying up. But the financial strain was just one aspect of the family's growing troubles. Internally, the gang began to unravel. With their encrypted communications compromised, trust within the organisation began to erode. Members who had once felt secure by their anonymity were now questioning whether their conversations had been intercepted by the police. This paranoia began to spread, and soon, even the most loyal members of the family were looking over their shoulders. For a criminal organisation that had prided itself on discretion and careful planning, the ghost hack represented an unprecedented threat. The family had always managed to avoid the infighting and betrayal that had plagued other gangs, but now, with their communications exposed, they're facing a new kind of danger. From within. As Gardaí continued to arrest more members of the family, it became clear that the gang's ability to operate was becoming increasingly limited. Key figures are being taken off the streets, and those who remain are struggling to maintain control. Without their encrypted communications, the family is forced to resort to more traditional methods of communication, which has left them vulnerable to further surveillance. The real question remains, can they recover? Or is this just the beginning of the end for one of Ireland's most powerful criminal enterprises? The decline of the family isn't just an internal matter. The gang's downfall is part of a broader, coordinated effort between international law enforcement agencies. Europol, the FBI, Australian Federal Police and other entities are increasingly focused on dismantling organised crime groups, with the family becoming a prime target. All of them combined have tightened the noose in a global pursuit. Their operations have grown too large, too profitable and too exposed to be ignored, and the pressures exerted on them from the outside forces is becoming a significant factor in their fall. For years, the family had expanded its operations far beyond the confines of Dublin's streets. They'd forged alliance with criminal networks in Europe, including the Turkish mafia in the UK and gangs in Central Europe, all to secure their steady supply of drugs. Coke shipments originating in South America made their way through key European ports, including Belgium's Antwerp and the Netherlands' Rotterdam, and eventually into Ireland. The family had become adept at navigating the vast criminal network, using it to their advantage to amass vast wealth. However, the globalisation of their operations also made them vulnerable to international policing efforts. As part of the encrypted hack in 2020, which initially targeted the Kinnahan cartel and other criminal organisations, authorities had amassed a large amount of information on encrypted communications that reveal key details about the family's drug trade. This information has been critical in the arrest of the Kinnahan-affiliated criminals, but also implicated the family in large-scale drug trafficking, money laundering, and even contract executions. The ghost hack followed the success of the EncroChat breach, brought even more attention to the family. The hack targeted a new encrypted communications platform used by criminal organisations worldwide, and the data harvested revealed the family's role in organising major drug shipments and laundering millions in illicit funds. Irish police, with the help of Europol, began meticulously building cases against the family's leadership based on the intercepted communications. The international scope of the operation means that no aspect of the family's network is safe. Their connections to Turkish gangs, their reliance on ports in Europe, and even their use of small aircraft to smuggle drugs was all exposed through these hacks. This global exposure is making it difficult for the family to find safe havens for their operations. Countries once considered reliable partners for drug smuggling now found themselves under the watchful eyes of international policing agencies. One particularly devastating blow to the family's operations came when the authorities intercepted a light aircraft smuggling coke into Ireland. Ireland's Garda National Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau received a solid tip about the use of the Cessna aeroplane for drug smuggling, which led to the setup of the operation and the eventual seizure of the drugs. the plane was carrying 120 kilograms of drugs. The pilot, Tim Gilchrist, was arrested and sentenced to over 10 years in prison. Gilchrist had been flying £8.4 million worth of coke from France to a private airfield in Ireland. Gilchrist told the court he was under duress and was forced to fly the shipment. The court heard that unknown individuals had threatened to harm his daughter. According to the court documents, the defence said that there were no customs agents present either at the airport in France or in Ireland. The seizure was seemingly isolated, but it had enormous repercussions for the family. It was one of their primary drug supply routes, and losing it meant they had to rely more heavily on shipments through commercial ports, which were also being monitored. The family's international connections had always been key to their success, but they were now a liability. European and North American law enforcement agencies, spurred by their success with EncroChat and Ghost, were increasingly sharing intelligence and resources to disrupt criminal gangs like the family. The days of operating in relative obscurity were over. Now, the family found themselves in the crosshairs of a global law enforcement coalition determined to bring them down. A particularly chilling development was the involvement of the FBI. American law enforcement had traditionally focused on domestic gangs or larger international cartels, but the global nature of organised crime meant that even Ireland's gangs were now of interest to the US authorities. The FBI's involvement in the Ghost hack, alongside the Australian Federal Police, signified the seriousness with which these agencies viewed the family. The gang's reach, particularly their connections to European drug routes and money laundering schemes, was no longer just an Irish problem, it was an international concern. As the international dragnet closed in, the family's leadership faced increasingly limited options. With their communications tool compromised, they were forced to revert to more primitive methods of communication. The paranoia that gripped the organisation grew as members feared that every phone call, every meeting could be monitored. The family's leadership, including the Grenan Brothers who had long remained in the shadows, found themselves under unprecedented spotlight. The Ghost hack also revealed something that police had suspected for years. The brothers were not just involved in drug trafficking. Their operations extended into the realm of organised violence, including the orchestration of hits on rival gang members and even associates who had fallen out of favour. One of the most significant revelations from the Ghost hack was the involvement of the family in the hit on Gary Carey, a criminal who had previously survived multiple assassination attempts. Carey's hit had long been a point of speculation in Dublin's underworld. He'd been shot multiple times in broad daylight at a hotel in Kilmainham in 2022, a brazen attack that sent shockwaves through the city. At the time, it was widely believed that the family was behind the hit, but there was little concrete evidence to tie them directly to the crime. However, the Ghost hack revealed that Carey's murder had been meticulously planned and sanctioned by the family's leadership. Carey had become a liability to the family after years of involvement in the drug trade. His knowledge of their operations, combined with rumours that he had been cooperating with the police, made him a target. In the Irish underworld, the foremost lesson given to the recruits is, don't be a rat. The family had made 3 previous attempts on his life, all of which he had narrowly survived. But in 2022 they finally succeeded. The Ghost hack provided the security forces with the communications that led up to the hit, implicating several key members of the family in the plot. The family had long avoided the kind of high-profile bloody feuds that had plagued other gangs like the Kinahan cartel, but Carey's elimination, along with other acts of violence orchestrated by the gang, revealed they were just as ruthless and willing to use extreme measures to maintain their power. As the dust settles on the raids, arrests and the dismantling of the family's empire, the question looming over the criminal underworld is whether the gang can ever recover from the near-total destruction of its infrastructure. After decades of dominance, the family's future looks more uncertain than ever. Their leaders have been imprisoned or driven into hiding, their operations severely disrupted, and their assets seized by authorities. But organised crime has a history of resilience. Could the family, in some form, still make a comeback? The history of criminal organisations suggests that while individual groups may rise and fall, the system they operate with often remains. Criminal networks are adaptable, able to reform and re-emerge in new guises. While the family has been dealt with a series of devastating jolts, remnants of its structure remain intact. Lower-level members still operate in Dublin and other regions of Ireland, and there is little doubt that some of these foot soldiers will attempt to keep the organisation alive, even in a diminished capacity. One potential future for the family is a period of fragmentation where the gang splits into smaller factions. These splinter groups, likely led by mid-level members who avoided capture, may continue to operate in local drug markets. However, without the centralised leadership that once defined the family, these factions could end up competing against one another, further weakening the gang's overall power. This internal fragmentation would also make it easier for the police to target individual factions, picking them off one by one. Another possibility is that the family could adopt a lower profile, learning from the mistakes that led to its exposure. One of the key factors in their undoing was their increased visibility, both in terms of their expanding drug empire and their involvement in money laundering through semi-legitimate businesses. In the aftermath of these raids, surviving members of the family may seek to return to the shadows, focusing on smaller scale operations that are harder for the police to track. This strategy of laying low has been used by other criminal organisations in the past. After the high-profile downfall of the Kinahan cartel, for example, some of its members retreated to more discreet roles, continuing to make money through drug trafficking while avoiding the flamboyance that had attracted so much attention to their activities. The family could follow a similar path, becoming a more secretive and elusive organisation. However, the global law enforcement community's success in dismantling the family's operations has set a precedent. International cooperation has never been stronger, and the tools used to take down encrypted networks like EncroChat and Ghost have shown that even the most careful criminal organisations can be exposed. This means that even if the family attempts to regroup and operate more discreetly, they will face unprecedented scrutiny from authorities. For the family itself, the path forward is fraught with uncertainty. Many of its key leaders are facing long prison sentences, and those who remain free are on the run, with few places left to hide. The gang's financial resources have been severely depleted by the raids, and the loss of their sophisticated money laundering operation makes it difficult for them to rebuild their empire. Without the vast sums of cash generated by their drug trade, family's ability to bribe officials, pay off rivals, and maintain loyalty amongst its members will be significantly reduced. This increase in violence poses a serious challenge to the security forces. While the dismantling of the family is a major victory, it's also created a more chaotic and unpredictable criminal landscape. Security agencies will now need to contend with a more fractured underworld, where multiple groups are vying for dominance and the risk of collateral damage to innocent civilians is higher than ever. Looking ahead, it's clear that the fall of the family represents both an opportunity and a challenge for the police. On the one hand, the removal of one of Ireland's most powerful criminal organisations is a significant achievement. But on the other hand, the vacuum left by the decline has opened the door for new players to enter the scene, many of whom are even more ruthless and dangerous than their predecessors. The future of the family is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the battle for control of Ireland's drugs trade is far from over. Europol Executive Director Catherine de Boll has boldly said, "They can't evade our collective effort." Europol Deputy Executive Director Jean-Philippe Lecouf said, "This was truly a global game of cat and mouse, and today the game is up." Whether the family manages to regroup or whether they are replaced by new, more formidable gangs, the fight against organised crime in Ireland will continue to evolve. The Grenan Brothers are already on the close watch of the police. After the success of Operation Kraken, it's only a matter of time until the police find concrete evidence to pin all of the illicit activities on the family. If all of the dominoes fall, who would step in to fill the void left by the family's retreat? And what new dangers will arise as a result? Only time will tell.